Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. This is Eric Riz speaking to you live from a very warm Toronto, Canada. It's great to be with everyone today, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be here to the Virtual Marathon team. Apologies, I know we are a couple minutes late with our start time, but you know, with live events, these things happen, and we'll just do our best to get through this in the next 45 minutes. So as mentioned, my name is Eric Riz, and it is a pleasure to be with you today to talk through one of my favorite topics, which is from SharePoint to Teams, the future of governance. And the future of governance is, let's be honest, it's incredibly entangled. It's very difficult. There's a lot happening, and over the course of the next 45 minutes, we're going to burn through everything that's happening and all the considerations we need to look into and look forward to as the ecosystem evolves and as the information world evolves through SharePoint, and of course Teams continues to see the uptake that it really has. So some contact information for you there on that first screen. By all means, reach out to me through any and all methods, socially at Riz Insights, by email eric@ericriz.com. Now, one of the reasons why we're doing this conference today is because, of course, we had to change the what is now called the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference, formerly SPC or SharePoint Conference. That will now be March 23rd to 25th, 2021 in Las Vegas. It's a fantastic show. If you haven't been there before, you absolutely owe it to yourself to be there. Thank you so much to our sponsors. If it wasn't for them, none of us would be here chatting with you today and have the ability to put on this conference. So thanks so much for that opportunity. And thanks to each of those sponsors for their generous support. Of course, there's no conference without a raffle. So we'll be giving away an Oculus Quest, or 3 Oculus Quests, not easy to say, excuse me. So by all means, reach out and ensure that you hit the link below to enter yourself in the raffle. If I were you, I'd enter a couple of times and see if that's a possibility, but you'll see when you get there. We're also supporting United Way, International Medical Corp, and a number of other charitable organizations through GoFundMe charities and such, and this event. So by all means, please support them as you're supporting us and as we are supporting the community. We are all in this together. So please do support those fantastic organizations, and thanks to them for all the fantastic work that they do. As far as the conference goes and this session goes, please provide some feedback, speaker feedback. As a speaker, we do take that stuff very seriously and appreciate your time looking into that and providing your feedback. And as an event, we want to know what you thought of the event, so please provide that feedback as well. If you thought it was fantastic, we want to hear it. If you thought it was less than fantastic, we want to hear that too, so we can improve it and ensure that future events really go off perfectly and it's enjoyed by everybody. So by all means, please reach out through those methods too. So for this session today, we've got a little image of someone that looks sort of like me. We're really talking about what is in the future of governance for SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. This is a very large conversation. I would typically do this in front of a large audience for about 75 minutes. So bear with me as we go through this in the next half hour or so. If you do have any questions, please answer or ask them. I'll answer them. You ask, I'll answer. Please ask them in the Q&A chat window, and our producer will talk in my ear and make sure that I am alerted to those questions and do my best to answer them. If I do not get a chance to answer them or address them, then please reach out to me, eric@ericriz.com, and I will be sure to get back to you in the next couple of days. Now, today's communicative landscape, as far as SharePoint and Teams goes, is nothing short of chaotic. Certainly, just look at, you don't have to look far to figure out what chaos is really like. Being involved in a conference like this is something that is truly quite chaotic. There are a ton of moving parts. There are people from all over the world who are working behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to ensure that everything goes off without a hitch. There are messages, there's chat, there are documents, there are files, there are presentations, all sorts of things all over the place. And it takes a lot of communication, a lot of practice, and a lot of struggle, to be quite honest, to ensure that everything that people need to make this happen works. And I can assure you that certainly no conference goes off without a hitch, and there's a lot of work that has to happen. And how do we do that? The question is, how do we do that? What is the governed way that we try to do that? Now, typically, organizations move towards products. They move towards tools. They move towards a landscape that is tool-based, and certainly that's a good thing. But the onus is on all of us, from administrators to end users to executives to anybody in the office, to ensure that the work that people do and the messages that are being sent are done in an effective way. They're done the same way every time, because the more repetition there is, the better. And that's how adoption happens. We're not going to talk a lot about adoption today, but a little bit. But ensuring that all the information that everyone needs is available and everything is communicated back and forth in a cohesive and consistent way. That's what makes for strong communication. Now, the issue that we have is that we're in an environment that is incredibly busy. We're all busy. Even today, and I'm not going to touch too much on where we are today as a world, but even today, there's so much content and so much information that is available to us just within our own organizations. You don't have to go far. Look on your desktop or your PC or your laptop and think about the last time that you had to actually search for a document. The reason you had to search for that document is because you didn't know where it was. If you knew where it was, you wouldn't have to search for it. And according to recent statistics, 35% of searches that are done in a day are done to find and search for information, and about half of that actually results in the recreation of that content because someone couldn't find the information they were looking for. And that's a huge waste of time, and certainly no one can afford that. We need to be better. We need to be much better than that. And governance and the future of governance, certainly with SharePoint and Microsoft Teams, allows for that to take place. Now let's look at who we all are. And I don't know who's here, and it doesn't matter what area of the world or what corner of the world you are in. We all, generally speaking, come into the same place, which is we are the modern learner. Doesn't matter who you are, C-suite, end user, we're all modern learners. We are overwhelmed, we're distracted, we're impatient. We're all impatient, everyone's impatient. Even today, we're impatient. We want to see more, we want to get things done. Now, 2/3 of workers complain that they don't have enough time that they need to get their work done. That's a pretty horrible statistic to look at. 80% of employees admit to using non-approved SaaS apps in their jobs. What does that mean? It means that if you have one of these things, then the likelihood is that you have an app on your device, on your tablet, on your mobile device that has not been sanctioned and approved by your organization. That means you're sending corporate data in some way, shape, or form to that app in an unmanaged way. So not only do you have issues with the way that we're communicating, but we have issues with the way the data is being communicated back and forth within the apps that we're using. A few statistics at the bottom. The number of times people check their inboxes, and let's be specific here, that's not actual send receive check, because no one does that anymore, but that's the number of times that you look at your inbox to see what's there, up to 30 times an hour. I'm definitely way over that. I don't know about you. Knowledge workers are unlocking their smartphones up to 9 times every hour. I probably do mine 9 times every minute. I can't sit still. So a ton of information. Why are we going to those devices? We're going to check information. Did someone message me? Is there more information? Is there more data that's available to me? That's a huge issue and a huge problem as far as data and content goes. And then workers getting interrupted. Workers being interrupted as often as once every 5 minutes. Now, certainly this is something that today those interruptions come largely through messages, emails, phone calls, communication, as most of us are not in a one-to-one down the hall type of environment. But once every 5 minutes, if there's a message you have to work on, if there's something that someone is sending you, that's a distraction. And the notification that you get is actually what I call a distractification. And that distractification is truly a very bad thing. Why? Because statistically, according to Harvard Business Review, it takes you between 10 and 15 minutes to reset your brain and find that sweet spot, if you were working on something, to go back and really be creative and get back into that working mode. So if you're being interrupted once every 5 minutes and it takes you 10 minutes to get back to where you need to be, then really you're net zero, actually net negative, over the course of an hour as far as your time goes. And that's why governance is so important, because in a governed world where SharePoint and Microsoft Teams are governed successfully, you have more information, more access to content. You are more seamless in the work that you're actually doing, which means that at the end of the day, everything that happens is being done in a repetitive, succinct, adaptive way, and that's great if you can do it. Without it, you run into the issues that many of us have today, and that's what this slide is really speaking to. Now, governance as a theory is something that Microsoft has tried many times in many ways over the years to really try to break the back of and try to get in front of and provide the tools and the techniques to the users and the end users and the executives that really need to understand what governance is. Now, in 2013, governance looked like this to the Microsoft world, and it was broken down into IT governance, it was broken down into information management and application management. I remember delivering a speech on the SBC, I believe it was 13 or 14 floor in Las Vegas in front of 1,500 people, and this was really the nucleus of the conversation. It was all about this. Now we look at governance today. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about governance? The first thing that comes to my mind when I think about governance is this. This is really what governance is today. Governance is all around and focused around Microsoft Teams. Why? Because it's so easy to pick up. People are so ready, and certainly in today's world, are so quick to leverage Microsoft Teams, use Microsoft Teams, create a team, add some people, send some stuff around, try to get things done. And that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. That's absolutely fantastic. But at the end of the day, we have to do it in a governed way. What many people don't realize is that when you create a team, creating a team is not a simple thing. It is a simple thing at a front end level. You just click here, click there, give it a name, and life is wonderful. But behind the scenes, things are happening. It's not just about creating a team and getting a channel. It's about the OneNote that you've created automatically by creating that team. It's about the OneNote sections and tabs that fold in within that. It's about the tabular environment that happens atop the Teams environment that shows you the OneNote sections and the various apps, and we'll get into that in a few minutes, the various apps that are available to you within that environment. And then you have the SharePoint side of things. Remember, everybody, that when you look at a Microsoft team and a channel, that is the front end of SharePoint. That's really all that is, not to minimize it, but that's really all that is. It's the front end of SharePoint, which means you have a site collection from an ownership perspective, and you have a SharePoint team site that has been created to support your Microsoft team. That means you have a document library, you have folders, you have lists available to you. And if you are a SharePoint person and you understand what all that means at a volume level, then you really recognize that, wow, there's a ton of stuff that's in here. And I need to be really succinct in my methodology for creating my information management layers and the content that needs to go into and behind all of that world as far as delivery goes, because we want to make sure that we have the infrastructure set up for success. We simply can't have endless site collections, endless team sites, document libraries without homes, and information just run amok in our environments. If we do, we might as well take the laptop in our environment or the PC in our environment that is the most confusing and duplicate it, replicate it for everybody. That would just be a disaster, and we certainly don't want to do that. Now, when you're creating this content, you're creating this information, we're looking at a level of detail. So we're looking at a governance world that we need to be very specific in. So in the SharePoint world, if you're looking at the admin center, then there's all kinds of fun and exciting things that are in there. Things that end users don't care about. End users care about one thing. They care about functionality. They care about, can I do it? They care about, can I get my job done? Or is this thing inhibiting me? And hopefully the inhibitor is not Microsoft Teams or SharePoint. Hopefully everything is happening in the best practice and the best environment possible. But the reality is it's not going to happen that way. So we look at the admin center. Well, there's a lot of things that have to go in here. There's a ton of things that have to go in here. Now, this was confusing before. Now we have to overlay that for long-term success, which means there's an additional level of complexity. We have to look at the admin center behind Microsoft Teams as well. And these are some screen grabs that I grabbed from our environment. Things to consider. Now, we're not going to go deep. We're actually not going to go at all into the specifics and some of the things that you can modify within the Teams environment. I'm not going to talk about the policies and the level of detail that we can get into from an end user, should I, shouldn't I type of perspective in order to create the policies that we need to be governed. We're going to talk at a different level. So the next few slides will go into that level, and we will talk about what should really drive the conversation here, and then we'll come back into some modeling. I'll show you 3 different models and things you can look at, and then we'll get into some Q&A. Hopefully that works for everybody. Now, in terms of what we need to look at here from an end user level, we need to ensure that the C-suite is ready. And what does that mean? Well, what is the C-suite? The C-suite are the CEOs, CIOs, CXOs, CMOs, the leaders of your business who really need to understand the importance and the impactfulness of SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. And I can tell you right now, most do not. They may understand it from a delivery level, but at a technical level, it's not something that they're concerned about. Should they be? Probably not. It doesn't matter to them. What does matter is the fact that they need to be behind this effort, because it's going to be their blessing that's going to be the difference between success and failure from a long-term delivery level. What I mean by that is we need to get together in and on an approach in a governed way to ensure that customers and employees, that users and users are all on the same page at a delivery level. That means that everybody understands what Microsoft Teams is there to do. They're getting behind the product, and this is something that's very easy to do today. They're getting behind the product because they recognize that this is the way that they're going to succeed as an organization. Today, it's the 27th of May, 2020. We are not able to connect at a one-to-one level for many businesses face-to-face, which means that we have to rely on the machines that I'm currently relying on to talk to all of you to ensure that the end of job, the end of day job, the end of task job, job one, as they say, is actually completed and done. That's what's critical. And our C-suite needs to understand that from a governance level, at the end of the day, that governance needs to be there, which means we need to support it. We need to put resources behind it. We need to ensure that the people who have been and have been supportive of the organization for so many years are involved in governance teams. We need to make sure that we've really dissected these tools and these products and these techniques at the right level in order to get what we need from not just the systems and the platforms, but the organization as a whole. Now, as we move through these slides, we need to ensure that partnerships are something that are really considered, and not just from the C-level, but all throughout the organization. Now, these aren't just the partnerships that exist externally. These are partnerships internally, ensuring that the right partnerships within business units have been created, that when Microsoft Teams was introduced, anywhere from 1 to 3 years ago, or present to 3 years ago, I should say. When Microsoft Teams was introduced, it was introduced with the excitement and the support that it truly deserved to ensure that people were going to get on board with its functionality. Everyone likes to communicate, whether it's communicating via email, whether it's communicating via collaborative tools, texting, whatnot, phone calls, if you actually have one of those things that rings on your desk. Whatever the method, we need to make sure that people are understanding what these systems, platforms, and tools are there to do. And from a governance level, we need to understand and make sure that there is cross-continuity between the organization and the business units, and partnerships exist to create that level of governance, that level of adoption, that level of understanding of what Microsoft Teams is there to do and what SharePoint is there to do, because without it, the future is very bleak. Certainly, coming off of Microsoft Build last week, we see how quickly Microsoft is building additional capabilities and tools within not just SharePoint, but Microsoft Teams as well. And those announcements, because of the fact that everyone is now dealing with a cloud environment and there aren't that many on-site servers still in place, there are, but from a cloud perspective and an online perspective, Microsoft has the capability to create functionality that works for everybody and push it live. And whether that update happens on a Monday or Tuesday is irrelevant. Once it's live, it's there. And it's up to all of us to ensure that we have those partnerships in place within our organizations to quickly push that functionality to our users, to ensure that we have the training, the techniques, the communication in place at a governed level so that everybody is using the right systems, the right platforms in the right way. What we recognize by doing that is that the workforce is really the marketplace. Every company needs a governance strategy that embraces needs, demands, and future growth. Certainly, we've seen today that the past 2 months has been nothing short of chaotic, and organizations quickly shut their doors and were forced into online environments to succeed. Now, that's not exactly something that's predictable. You can have a disaster management plan or a pandemic plan in place to accomplish that, but recognizing that that's not a futuristic thing we're going to predict, there are many things that will happen in the future that we can. And certainly now that we know the way the world will get back to work and how things will start to happen in a more traditional fashion, there are things that can be planned. And a governance model that incorporates those changes is something that is really going to be the difference between long-term success and failure, not just from a Microsoft Teams level or SharePoint level, but from a document level, from a data level, from an insights level, and ensuring that people have the right access to the right information is really critical. So recognizing that strategy that you have in place for IT now has to be modified to adapt to our current environment is something that will benefit everybody long-term. And in a few slides, I'll show you what some techniques are for doing that. We're certainly entering the uncharted. And this is a slide I've had in my cache for a little while, but I don't think there's ever been a time such as today where this is really impactful and resonates with the businesses and the people, the end users, the real people behind the scenes here. So working towards corporate governance that really makes sense for individuals is what we're getting at here. That means that governance models, as I call them, I don't call them governance plans, because a governance plan is typically thought of or referred to even subconsciously as a document. It's a thick document that typically sits on a shelf or in a filing cabinet gathering dust. That's not where governance is today. And it's not where governance is today because it's not where the tools are today. We need to catch up with those times. So ensuring that the governance models that we have embraces not just the technologies, but the changes in our business environments is what we really need to do to make sure that we have long-term success through governance, through delivery, through implementation, through long-term adoption, through the tools, the data, the insights, the information that we really need to be successful as an organization. Now, who knows what that's going to look like? Who knows what that's going to be as far as the way that businesses will modify their I'm very hopeful about this, but their existing governance plans or governance models to adapt to this change in society. But we really need to take a deeper look at that. So let's say it's net new. We have all sorts of time and opportunity to make change and to be the best organization that we can in terms of governance. What does that design look like? Well, the future of work has arrived. It's time to truly create organizational design that matches, in terms of governance, that matches the demand for information today. If I was in a room and speaking in a room, I would ask the audience right now, and I'll ask each of you, what's the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning? And keep it clean, okay? No colorful answers here. The first thing that most people would do and also answer is they grab their phone. Why? Well, who knows? That's typically the answer, because we want to see what we missed overnight. We are now programmed into this data flow, this flow of information, this news cycle of content, and certainly today, now more than ever, the demand for information has increased. When I get off of this live chat today and look at my phone, I'll have a stream of various notifications letting me know what happened. Everything from the stock market to anything that's happening in my office environments to, I would typically say the scores, but there are no scores right now. Maybe there'll be a golf tournament that we can tune into. Whatever those notifications are going to show me, I want to see them, and I want to make sure that I have the access to that information, and each of you that are watching this want the exact same thing. That's the demand. That's what we have today as far as the embracing of the future of work. The future of work is an environment where people want content. So how can we create a governance model for Microsoft Teams, for SharePoint, that's going to really identify with that? Because having a governance model that just applied metadata or ensured that information was stored in a certain way is really by the wayside now. We need to be a lot more inclusive with the individuals, the the information, the business units that we have to conduct business with in terms of our own organizations and external organizations. We need to be far more involved in that whole process. So some simple workflow slides to show some ideas behind how this can really work. Creating a meaningful governance model is, to me, step one, phase one, whatever you want to call it. And I'm talking about a model, not a plan, because we'll talk about a plan in a few minutes. I talk about a plan more as components because it's really choosing your own adventure these days as far as governance goes. But looking at a meaningful governance model means something that is reflexive, it means something that is participatory, and it means something that is conditional. Now, reflexive is really something that is performed, much like the word says, as a reflex. It's something that you've done 10 million times, 100 million times, 20 times, it doesn't matter. The number of times doesn't matter, but when it's a reflex, it's done without conscious thought. If something was to fall off the shelf behind me right now, I'd reach out, I would grab it, and I would ensure that it wouldn't hit the floor and smash into a million pieces, because that's what we're all trained to do. You catch something before it hits the ground. In terms of governance, we want to be in the same type of reflexive thought, which means having 360 vision. It means having the ability to look forwards and backwards, look on, as I call it, the fourth dimension, to ensure that the way that we look at content, the way that we look at our organizations, the way that we look at information coming into and going out of not just Microsoft Teams, but SharePoint and across the entire Microsoft ecosystem, all that content is dealt with in the right way. Now, what is the right way? Good question. I'm glad you asked it. The right way to me means single source data, single source content that is shared through links throughout the entire organization. That means we're not sending documents back and forth. We're sending one version of the truth, which sits in one place, whether that is in Microsoft Teams, whether that is through SharePoint, whether that's sitting on the OneDrive, it doesn't matter. Wherever it lives, it lives. And therefore, modifications to that document or that item are only done once, and they're automatically pushed out to the various stakeholders and participants of that consumption of data. To me, that's reflexive. Participatory means that people are involved and change is represented based on the needs of the organization. Certainly, we'll be looking at a lot of change over the course of the next few months as people start to go back to work into real workplaces, offices, so on and so forth. And of course, the look at that is going to change significantly. So we need to make sure that people are being managed and spoken to and ensure that they are worked with in the right way. Make sure that people are participating not just in the feedback cycle of content, but in terms of the governance model itself. And then finally, conditional, putting conditions into and within the business to ensure that change and conditional change, things that happen as the organization changes in itself, are managed and are delivered back to the governance model, the governance plan, the end user in an efficient and effective way. So what does all this mean? What does all this mean as far as being reflexive, participatory, and conditional? Well, it means that building in that three-way model of reflexive, participatory, and conditional is a model that really makes sense to the organization. So here we have things like a best practice toolkit, prioritizing components of your governance strategy, looking at feedback mechanisms that are going to gather that information from the business units, from end users, and ensure that participants are not just spoken to and encouraged to be part of the solution, but ensure that information is tested and changed and new models are tested as well. That means that that means that you're being responsible in looking at the way that you're doing things and recognizing that the way you're doing it now may not be the way you want to do it in 6 months. So having those feedback cycles and having that opportunity to look at things on that fourth dimension or with 360 vision is really something from a governance level that can be very impactful and an excellent source of growth for your organization. Users like to see, end users like to see that the organization is being responsive. It's not always possible, recognize that for sure. However, ensuring that you are on that fourth dimension is something that really is critical to provide that feedback cycle, not just through new tools, new models, new mechanisms, but ensuring that long-term people are happy with the feedback and the growth of the organization. Growth doesn't always mean expansion. It can just mean conditional change or change depending on the nature of your organization. And then a model that really makes sense in terms of conditional to the organization. Looking at test cases, use cases that really make sense based on your current environment. And again, I hate to go back to what I said previously, but certainly today there is so much that we can look to and learn from as far as looking at what those models look like, ensuring that best practices and end user information is used in feedback cycles. And especially at times like now, there is so much that we can do together as one to share that content, to share that information. I think you'll be surprised if you speak to not just within your business, but outside externally through other organizations, asking what they're doing or looking at different models that can work for your organization. Other companies may be very welcoming and willing to provide that information and feedback to you, as well as content. Then you have guided governance below. So once you look at that sort of best practice piece, there's guided governance as well. And the reason why there's a little telephone icon, for those of you that recall what a telephone was. The telephone icon is there because these are really communication techniques and tools that can make sense for you, for your team, for your organization. Looking at really ways to collaborate and conduct conversations that make sense to the organization. Planning, focusing, distilling content, ensuring requirements are met, all very, very important in the life cycle, as well as creating training plans, ensuring and recognizing that people aren't just going to get governance day one. You need to make sure that there is a training plan incorporated into the organization, and ensuring that people are really recognizing what they need, and that feedback lifecycle is really continuing to exist within the organization. And then an engagement plan. Things don't just happen. Things don't just fly off the shelves, and information doesn't just get communicated between teams. We're all too busy. There's too much going on, so on and so forth. No problem. Let's be more realistic and more effective in the content and the information that we are providing at a governance level. Build an engagement plan that makes sense to your organization. Now, as we look to the model components, we've talked about how to build the model, what the model can look like, and some techniques behind what that can look like at a high level. But what do we really do? You know, there's this Teams thing, there's this SharePoint thing. What do we look to get those policies in place? How can we really manage that content? How can we manage that information and that data at the right levels within the organization? Well, on the next slide, there are some ideas and concepts of how to do that. So when you're looking at, and this is really a when to use what conversation, when you're looking at things like user experience and you're looking at policies and governance around user experience, you want to look there to SharePoint. If you're looking at lifecycle improvements and how to automate things, you're looking at Power Automate. Now, these recommendations are all sitting at the administrative level, meaning you have the right controls or know of someone who can provide you with the right information and content and insights that you need and they need in order to make the right decisions. Power Automate, of course, is incredibly powerful and the core of the Power Platform. Ensuring that the Power Automate is the nucleus of that lifecycle conversation is very important. I spoke earlier in the last couple of slides about content and ensuring that you have single source content, that you are sharing information and content from a single source type of environment, one version of the truth, and OneDrive, or the very small version of the OneDrive logo, is the place to do that. SharePoint is where you want to go back to look at mobile, as well as internet, moving to the right-hand side of that slide. The administrative panels is where you want to go to understand what compliance can really look like, as well as the management layer or levels as far as deployment and upgrades go. Within, of course, Microsoft Teams, that's really where social lives today. A lot of people don't realize that there are some serious decisions that have to be made around the notifications, the personas, if you will, the way that people not just interact with Teams and SharePoint, but the way they interact with each other. A prime example of that is the thumbs up that you can apply as a user to any message that you receive from anybody in your organization. Well, here's a perfect example for you. If someone sent you a message and said, I'd like to take the next 6 months off through Microsoft Teams, and you responded as their superior with a thumbs up, did you just give them the next 6 months off? Well, probably not. But we need to really be very careful, obviously, about that and make sure that you have a policy and guided governance in place to ensure that the right information is happening. So some policies and some standards and some best practices organization to ensure that you're using the thumbs up or the thumbs down or anything else within those 6 icons, more as I would call them read receipts. No one likes read receipt now, but there's something very, very rewarding about receiving those emoticons as responses to messages. They're sent as to sort of an FYI, yes, I saw your email, or thank you very much, or smiley face, or whatever it is. That's very important from a social perspective. It makes people feel good, even if you haven't read through the 10-page document, just to say, yes, thanks so much for sending that. Also from a Teams environment, I would look at search and governance around search within Microsoft Teams now. So many people are looking forward to some of the enhanced capabilities with search that were announced last week at Microsoft Build, and ensuring that there is a standard in place for Teams around search is very important. Then within work management, you've got Planner. That's the Planner logo if you're not familiar with it. And looking at BI and interoperability, data availability, synchronization, really the Power Platform pieces. That's obviously where you want to go within Power Automate and the Power Platform to get that content. One of the questions I get asked a lot within the governance conversation is, where does accountability lie? Who should do what? What should the oversight be? How should the information really be communicated? Who has decision-making power? So the next slide shows you some suggestions. Don't shoot the messenger, or in this case, the speaker, but it shows you some suggestions on how to divide and conquer, how to look at your organization or your project team and provide the accountability that you need to make the decisions that you really require as an organization to not just get your plan in place and your model in place, but really make sure that it's impactful for the organization. I am going through these last few slides. I know they're very content heavy and rich. A little quickly, these slides will all be posted with this speech and this presentation to the YouTube channel following the conference. You can also reach out to me, eric@ericriz.com, or hit my blog, and I'll make sure that they're up there, but happy to provide them to you. Final slide before we get into the obligatory thank you and QA slide. A few next steps. So this is a lot of content to take in 40 minutes or 35 minutes. What should I be doing? I imagine many of you are thinking right now, what should I be doing? How do I ingest this and take this and move forward? My suggestion is this: 3 phases, and it's totally up to you how you want to implement or apply these phases. Phase 1, identify the need. 2, map out the change, and 3, evangelize the future. Identifying the need and ensuring that you understand what SharePoint and Teams components are really all about. Looking for most organizations at what you're currently using is a great place to start. Very few organizations today don't have one or both of these systems in place. So ensuring that you know what you have and really what you're using, doing some analysis and getting some analytics. There's a lot of easy ways to do that. A lot of people out there, some of which have sponsored this conference, certainly are able to help with that. Ensuring that you know what you have is obviously step 1. Gathering feedback, looking to your users for requirements, identifying strategies, ensuring feedback mechanisms are in place. That's going to identify the need. Another place to really look towards for needs identification is what has gone wrong in the past, to be quite honest. What broke that we couldn't fix? What was something that the organization failed to do? We want to make sure that we recognize those things as critical and essential, and those lessons learned are very, very important. Mapping out the change, creating a governance capability map, designing new components, being involved in change is something that is never easy. So looking at current state governance capability maps, what the target state and current state and analysis of that can really look like, creating a BRD that's manageable for the organization. That's what really closes out phase 2. And then phase 3, evangelizing the future. Communication is something that is obviously at the core of this conversation, as is for many of these sessions throughout the conference. And ensuring that you're building an engagement roadmap, a training plan, the right marketing material within the organization, and an engagement plan for the organization is really something that is critical, not just for you, not just for your end users and your C-suite, but for the organization as a whole. For my last slide, I want to thank everybody. I'm just going to pull up the Q&A and ensure that we take a moment to address anybody who has had a question, but I want to thank all of you for your time and taking in the session today, whether you're doing it live, whether you're doing it online following the event. Thank you so much for your time, your patience. Thank you for your use of these systems and tools. And we love the fact that these conferences, are so well attended. Reach out to the community. If you have any questions, please make sure that you ask your questions now, and I'll be happy to answer them. Galen, can we see any questions? Okay, no questions. That means anybody who's watching this after the fact, by all means, please reach out to me, eric@ericriz.com. I'll be more than happy to answer your thoughts and questions. If you are a social being, by all means, please reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram @RizInsights. Hope you've had a fantastic 15-minute session here. Hope you've enjoyed the conference. We look forward to seeing everybody in March in Las Vegas. And everyone just please keep well, keep safe, and thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.